Welcome to the Texas edition of the Weekly Water Outlook. I'm John Felt. Well, across the state here, it looks like not a whole lot of rain over the last week. I wanted to start by taking a look at the big picture, the entire nation rainfall. And I think the trend of below normal rainfall was definitely typical across the entire nation. If we zoom in on Texas, what we see here is most of the region, the vast majority of the state, received either light amounts of rain or no rain at all. Matter of fact, the blue areas here are only a tenth to about a half inch of rain. And I think that would be pretty much what would be the typical amount of rain that fell over the state. Now, the far northeast part of the state, you see some green in there, and that's an inch or so, 1 to 2 inches. But again, for the most part, generally light amount of rainfall. And if we compare that to the percent of normal for the week, we see a lot of red, and red is 25% or less of normal, and that dark shade of red is only anywhere 5 to 10% of normal. So definitely we see a lot more red than we see blue, and most of the state experienced below normal rainfall last week. In fact, the number of rain days over the last 7 days, and this was through October 12th, we see in the entire state was no more than 2 days out of the last 7 that rain fell. And then a broad swath of the central part of the state, that darker color, and that's saying 0 out of the last 7. So by far, we had 5, 6, or even 7 days dry out of the last week. The drought monitor shows that the more extreme drought conditions are up in Oklahoma and parts of Arkansas, but there's still some significant drought, either extreme or exceptional, over the far northern part of the state and the far southern tip of Texas as well. The best part, where there's really no drought occurring, is the far east, but pretty much right in the middle of the state, either D0 or D1, which would be either moderate up to moderate drought or just abnormally dry. As far as the tropics, it's been a long time this tropical season, just in the early part where we had to even consider a tropical system moving towards the Gulf and in towards Texas. Right now there's just one system out there, Tropical Storm Raphael, and that's not moving anywhere near the U.S. It's curving in that typical path we've seen all year, and that's up towards the north and northeast, well away from the U.S. Streams across the state of Texas are generally in the green range here, which would be normal, between 25 and 75% of normal. A couple patches here and there are a little bit above or a little bit below, but generally we're looking at normal stream flow across the state. Okay, so let's look ahead now for this week. The jet stream is actually going to be pretty active. For 2 or 3 weeks now, we haven't really seen a whole lot. The yellow is early in the week and the blue's towards the end of the week. And what we see is a very strong upper low that's sort of quasi-stationary through much of the week. By the end of the week, it sort of flattens out with the west-east. But the point for Texas is most of the energy with this jet stream is to the north, and that's going to keep precipitation for the most part to the north. If any precipitation does occur in Texas, it's going to be associated with areas closest to the jet later this week, and that would be the northern part of the state. So if we look at the trends over the upcoming week from a national perspective, we see a lot of areas with no precipitation expected at all, and that's large parts of Texas. We see areas of light precipitation also in the southeast U.S., and overall generally a pretty quiet period with only a few isolated areas above normal rainfall. And those would be the Pacific Northwest and areas near the Great Lakes. Now with that below normal rainfall, we look at soil moisture. And keep in mind now, even though temperatures will be warm, and I've got to mention that they're going to be above normal this week, and that's going to increase soil moisture, decreases a bit more than climatologically normal for this time of year. But for most of the state, they will be decreasing. And what I was going to say is usually more moderate this time of year compared to summer because temperatures are much more moderate. But like I just said, temperatures will be above normal, so you will see some decrease in soil moisture over most of the state. Now there is a pocket of blue there, and that's slightly above normal over the far northern part, northeast. We'll see how that goes. There is one frontal passage this week that'll bring some rainfall, and that could bring soil moisture closer to normal in that region. Okay, now every once in a while I'll put in one of the models that go out quite a ways. This goes out through the week as far as precipitation. This isn't from a forecaster, this is from a numerical weather model. And what I wanted to point out here is really how dry it's going to be all the way from California over into Texas and parts of Oklahoma and Kansas as well. And what we see here is no rain whatsoever is forecast over north and parts of central Texas through this week. The only spot that is expected to receive some precipitation is far eastern and then the southern part of the state. Even over the southern part of the state, that rainfall is generally light. The green only goes up to a ½ inch. I think when I provide the briefing again next week, we're going to see the vast majority of Texas with that area in red, that dark area of red, which is indicating well below normal precipitation. So for Texas, weekly water outlook takeaway points, an active jet stream, but it's going to be to our north. Looks like it's going to be mostly dry all week, with the exception of maybe the far east and the far south. No tropical activity is expected, and there will be a modest decrease in upper soil moisture. Overall, another quiet week. Thank you for listening to the Weekly Water Outlook. I will be issuing information throughout the week, and I will be updating the Weekly Water Outlook again next Sunday or Monday morning. Thank you.